Okay, I'm going to use a app called Play Pause It to go over the next few pages in your binder. They're just too important to not go over. So if you can look on page 565, this is the overview of South Africa, and there's so much information here. I think you guys know, looking around the room, that two people I admire the most are Gandhi and Nelson Mandela, and we'll get into Mandela more tomorrow. But this is the little South Africa packet within a packet of the Africa packet, and it starts with some questions, which you'll have to answer before you watch this video. And you have what skin color are most people in Africa? Well, the thing is, people usually laugh when I ask this question because they think it's ridiculous, or they think somehow I'm being racist. Guess what? Most of the people south of the Sahara Desert are black, and we should know that. So again, prior knowledge. What 5-letter word is in the word apartheid? Well, we can see apartheid and apart in there. And that right there, it defines what apartheid does, and which is the next line. Now, a little bit on imperialism in Africa. South Africa, of course, the Europeans were interested because of things like gold, diamonds. You can see the map here of South Africa. It's just the southern tip of Africa, but it's a country. And then there's smaller countries actually within it that are settlements. I know my map here is a little dark. Maybe you can see yours a little bit better. There was a Boer War, what was called the Boer. The Boers were these people who were farmers, and they spoke a language called Afrikaans, and they were called Afrikaners, and that's going to be important when we talk about South Africa. Now, we have a group that the white minority, their racist policies come into power. And we haven't talked about Nelson Mandela, but there's been a struggle because for 50 years, whites have controlled this country, maybe even longer, but it's the descendants. It's not British, it's not Dutch, it's the descendants of those people who started the colony there at South Africa. And we can see the chart on the left. They have, what's the racial makeup of South Africa? And that's important for them because they break them even further into groups. And we'll get to that in just a second. Well, what happened was there was an election for prime minister, and guys like Nelson Mandela and the people of his political party, they were worried that this guy, General Smuts, was going to be elected or re-elected as prime minister, and he lost to what was called the National Party. The National Party were basically allied with the Nazis. So we're talking 1948 here. Nazis have been defeated, but they're fascists basically. And of course, they're not going to like black people, even though they're in a black dominant country. And they win the election, and they're actually the ones that in 1948 put apartheid into actual practice, where they're going to keep blacks, whites, every racial group apart from white people. So they have, it basically means apartness in their language, apartheid. Now, the white minority controls everything. They're going to say, where do people live? Where do people work? Where are they going to go to school? And then they have these different groups: Europeans, Bantu, who are the native Africans, colored, who are of anybody of mixed race, and Asian. Those groups couldn't marry within each other. And still today, those racial numbers are still about the same in South Africa. Okay, let's go to the next page, which would be 566. And here we have a picture of Nelson Mandela. I put two pictures in, one when he's young and one when he's older. And even the land is split for, that whites control the land, even though they're only a little bit of the population. And the African National Congress, there were several political parties. The one we want to know, and of course, I would make this a lot more stringent if we had a regents, because this is the topic that comes up the most, Gandhi and Mandela. But anyway, so details, it's still important to know, but not in the way that I would stress it if we were sitting in a room together, classroom. So the ANC, the African National Congress, they actually try to be nonviolent. They don't really have any success. They did use boycotts, marches, but eventually Mandela turns militant. He actually goes. He gets training for 8 weeks on how to be a guerrilla, how to fight a guerrilla war. They decide to start what's called a sabotage campaign. They are going to blow up bridges, blow up military bases, blow up anything that hopefully won't damage people, but will hurt the government. Unfortunately, there are at least 300 people probably that die in over the years of different campaigns of sabotage. Now, the thing is, Mandela, he leaves the country, gets guerrilla training, and then comes back and has to go on the run because he's wanted. So he never actually starts guerrilla warfare. He actually never takes part personally in any sabotage, etc. And then he's eventually arrested. And of course, that's the key to everything. We'll talk about that. So anyway, Nelson Mandela. There's other people too. Bishop Desmond Tutu, though I don't think he was a member of the ANC, which the ANC got outlawed by the government. He was certainly anti-apartheid. Albert Lutuli, he was the president of the ANC for many years. Mandela wasn't president of the ANC until many years later. He goes to prison for 27 years and he comes out later. And then Lutuli, though, he died in a car accident right near his house, which was very suspicious. But he received the Nobel Peace Prize. And in fact, there's a funny story. Mandela, when he was going to these different African countries, he was given a place of honor in one country's parliament because they thought he was Lutuli, but he was just a young assistant. He wasn't well known. And then Oliver Tambo, he leads the ANC. He has to go in exile all the time that Mandela's in jail. And so we have a picture there too of like what a mailbox there, a telephone kiosk, it says, where you go to use the telephone. We'll have some different videos we'll watch through a lot here. But people didn't like these, rules being put to them under apartheid. And so riots broke out in Johannesburg. Countries start to boycott them. And the next step was the whites moved all of the South Africans to what was called Bantustans, homelands. And you can see that on the next page, 567, that each different racial group was given, every different tribe, I should say, of South African blacks was given their own homeland. There were 9 or 10 of them. And Nelson Mandela, he went to law school, and he was the only African in his class. And of course, it was segregated. He started by doing it by mail. And even though he was going to college, he couldn't use the sports fields, the cafeteria, or the residences. And you see here also there's a picture of how poor the houses were. And then 568, another issue was economic inequality. And then we have people that are protesting against apartheid, and they're specifically ID passes. You can see here we have a couple officers stopping a black person. It's basically like a passport, but you have to have it in your own country. And of course, whites don't carry them. Only black people do. And if you get stopped, you have to, can you be in the area you're supposed to be in? That's what your ID pass says. And the black people, they hated it. And then there's a story there for, rate 3 facts, etc. And I've said a lot, but of course, we're going to talk about Mandela a lot more. So even though Mandela goes towards violence, he's inspired by Gandhi, etc. And we'll talk about Mandela some more tomorrow. It'll be a little longer, unfortunately. Okay? Good day. Good luck, and have a good day.